Hello, my name is Vinicius Sanger and I'm going to talk about Raspberry Pi board, the famous single board computer. Raspberry Pi is a very small, with a very affordable price project that you can run Linux and make very good and powerful different types of software. Raspberry Pi runs Linux and many other operational systems on SD card. So the SD card is the hard disk of the Raspberry Pi. And the main proposal is to make education and prototypes with Raspberry Pi, but you can make commercial projects. It's based on the system on chip from Broadcom called BCM2835. So it has the CPU, the GPU, the DSP, the DRAM and a single USB port, and it runs on 700 MHz. You can actually overclock to 1 GHz without losing the warranty. And the GPU is a video core 4 running at 250 MHz. So you have in all Raspberry Pi the video HDMI and composite video. You have USB port or ports. You have audio jack, so you can have audio system in your Raspberry Pi, and the storage is a SD card. So you will need a simple SD card from cameras to install your operational system. And you have the GPIO, where you can plug sensors, control motors, control lamps, LEDs and things like that, and support for serial connection using UART, I2C or SPI. We have two models of Raspberry Pi. The Model A is the simple one with less memory, just one USB port, no Ethernet connection, and the power rating is around 1.5 watts. In the Model B we have more resource, 512 megabytes of RAM, 2 USB ports, the Ethernet connection, but you have another power rating is more than 3 watts. We have other connections in our board for camera and also for displays. If you want to start playing with Raspberry Pi, you will need the Raspberry Pi board. You will need the power supply with 5 volts and at least 1 amp. And don't try to power your Raspberry Pi using your PC USB port, because it doesn't have the current enough to feed your Raspberry Pi. And the SD card, you will need at least 4 gigabytes SD card. And is optional a Wi-Fi dongle, the Wi-Fi or any other one, small one, or Ethernet connection. You will need to download some operational system. Here is the URL, the official website for downloading, and the Raspbian is the most popular and is the one that we are going to use during this set of videos. So after downloading, it will be a zip file. You just need to uncompress in some directory, and you are going to have an image file. This image you must transfer, you must flush the image into your SD card, and for doing that we have the DD command line for Mac and Linux users, and if you are Windows user you can download this utility for doing that. You have detailed information, official detailed information in this URL. After doing that, you are ready to boot your Raspberry Pi. So you just insert your SD card. Take care with the SD card connector slot, because it's not strong, and if once you broke, it's very hard to fix it. So plug a monitor and a keyboard. We recommend you to start playing with Raspberry Pi using a monitor or even your television with composite cable you can use with your Raspberry Pi. So power it up, and the root user will be Pi, and the password is Raspberry. Very simple and easy. After booting, you can try to update your Raspberry Pi if you have internet connection. We recommend you to do that to make sure that you have the latest version of your operational system. So we use the sudo apt get update and upgrade and you're done. So you can also try to run the graphical user interface, the X server. Just type start X like the old times and you will see the graphical user interface, and you will need a mouse. So we invite you to pause this video and make sure that your Raspberry Pi is working. And so after doing that, we are going to show you how to make a network setup. So the network setup for basic configuration with Ethernet cable, you have the file /etc/interfaces/network. Just edit this file and you will see the iFace, ETH0 and DHCP. So this is the standard configuration. If you plug in the Ethernet cable, you will be able to have a connection. But if you want a static IP, you just edit this file and change from DHCP to static and add those 3 lines with your network information. If you want to make a wireless setup, you just need to add the last 2 lines of this slide with your wireless name and your wireless key. It's very simple and easy. If you want to make advanced Raspberry Pi setup like improving the video memory or overclocking, you can use the RaspiConfig. It's a very nice utility that you can use also to make regional settings and much more configuration without command line. After doing that, once you have the network connection setup done, you can use SSH protocol to access your Raspberry Pi. If you are Linux or Mac OS user, just type SSH pi at the IP number of your Raspberry board. And if you are Windows user, you can use this utility, download and use it PuTTY, and it's very simple and nice. And we also recommend you to use Filezilla, which is a very nice utility for transferring files from your PC to your Raspberry, and it will be very useful to write Java code and send to your Raspberry board. Now we are going to make a demonstration how to access SSH protocol to make a connection between your PC and your Raspberry, and also how to use Filezilla to transfer one file to your board. So I have here the PuTTY SSH client installed on my Windows machine, and I'm going to open the program and put my IP address. In this case, I have this IP address for my Raspberry Pi, and I'm going to click open and type PI as my login and Raspberry as a password. So now I'm here in my Raspberry Pi board, remotely connected using SSH, and now I don't need the monitor or the keyboard locally in my Raspberry Pi. I can do almost everything remotely. And now let me show you how I did the setup for the network. So I have here this directory and the interfaces file here, and I have 2 interfaces for Ethernet, one wireless, another one wired. So the wired one is a static connection with the IP number 10, and the wireless is the IP number 11. And in the wireless connection information, I also have the SSID from my wireless and the PS key as the key to access my wireless. So that's the basic configuration, and once you have the network read and working, it's much more easy to maintain and to transfer and play with Java applications on your Raspberry Pi. Now let me show you how to transfer a file using Filezilla utility. I'm going to open the site manager, and in the site manager I have my new site here, kind of Portuguese class, and I'm going to type my IP address. The number 10 is my Raspberry Pi, the user Pi, and the password Raspberry, and I'm going to connect. Now I have here my Raspberry Pi home directory listing, and here my local directory. I'm going to copy the license file from the JDK7 directory to my Raspberry Pi board. And using the SSH connection, I can check if the operation was successful or not. So I have the license file here, license. I can type license and check this file that I just transferred. So that's the basic idea of communicating, the basic communication between your laptop, your PC, and your Raspberry Pi. And thanks a lot for watching this video. Next video we are going to talk about Java and Raspberry Pi. See you.